Journal night.
Good evening and welcome to the Rangers Journal. It's Wednesday night and tonight we are bringing you something a little bit different because of the international break. So we have a squad report for you. What we're going to do is take most of the main players. I haven't got everyone. It's supposed to be about 50-55 minutes, so probably wouldn't have had time to go through everyone. But anyone that's played a significant amount of minutes, we're going to have a look at their main stats and then give them a rating. So before we get into all that, quick word for the show sponsors, Premier VPN, and provides simple, safe and reliable VPN solutions. And you can find them on Twitter and on Google by searching Premier VPN. With me tonight, I've got a fairly good panel, actually. I'm quite happy with this. I think we should get some interesting views on the players anyway. Ricky, I'll come to you first, mate. How you doing tonight?
I'm fine, thank you, Dave. Yeah, just not back in for the fives. Had a shower, had my dinner, and I'm ready to go. Good evening, Scott, Ross. Good to see you guys, and looking forward to the next sort of 50 minutes or so.
That's dedication, mate. Dedication. And Ross, I'll come to you next. How's things, mate?
Aye, not bad. I'm preparing myself for a night shift by coming in and talking about the Rangers squad in a season that's been a disaster. I couldn't think of a better way to prepare for a monotonous night than talking about this. Pleasure.
Yeah. Just hope it doesn't put you to sleep, mate. Don't want you missing work.
Just woke up, so I've not got an excuse.
And last but certainly not least, we welcome Scott as a visitor to the pod. How you doing, Scott?
I'm not bad, Dave. Good to be on again with yourself, Ricky and Ross, and I'm missing my celebrity for this.
And do you want to give yourself a plug before we get into it, then, mate?
I think everybody kind of knows it's not another Rangers podcast. We're on a Monday night and a Friday night, and we just talk about Rangers, and we just try to make it an aspect of just like this. Four guys talking about football, as in we're talking in the house or in a pub or in a supporters bus. It can be serious, but it's more just looking at a fan side of it. And
Feels like it's always bloody serious with Rangers at the minute. Okay, folks, just a quick reminder, if you do like what you see tonight, please like the video, like and subscribe to the channel. And without further ado, we shall jump into it. So first up, hopefully not the most contentious one we're going to discuss tonight. Jack Butland in goals has played, I think, every single competitive game for us. Because we all kind of expected Kelly to get a go in the cup, and I don't think he did. As you can see on the stat sheet there, 6 clean sheets, 8 goals conceded. He has saved 2 penalties, which is a bit different for Butland. He's not actually renowned for being a penalty saver. 11 matches played and 990 minutes, and this is, of course, in the SPFL. We can see from the radar here on the right, Ricky, clean sheet-wise, he's quite up there. No real surprise. And goals conceded, again, he's in quite a good place, quite high. It's when you start getting to the other stats. If you think back to last year, we were kind of all singing about Super Jack Butland, and I know there was a bit of query over his distribution, but he was pretty well regarded as both a shot stopper and coming out for balls. Now, just looking at the graph here, he's way down this season. What's your take been on Jack Butland so far this season, mate?
Well, I think like anything else with the rest of the team, the rest of the squad this particular season, Jack Butland's not the same Jack Butland as last season for me. That's not to say that he's not our number one, and I really rate him. I think Kelly, who we brought in, again, a lot of people were a bit, why are we bringing him back? I rate Kelly. I think he's a great player. He played really well in the kind of pre-season, and is a great understudy to Jack Butland. So he's certainly keeping Jack Butland on his toes. However, what I would say about Jack Butland, everybody was sort of screaming that he should be getting a call up to the England squad for the Euros and bits and bobs, and by all accounts he was almost there. But if there's anything that you can sort of labour Jack Butland's door where he could improve in, and at his age he probably ain't going to improve now, is his positioning. The amount of times, is it Thiago, whatever you call him, has sort of passed the ball, not thrashed the ball, passed the ball left or right of him to score goals. It's just easy goals. And for me, Butland's position should have stopped that. He doesn't narrow angle, as much as what I think he should be. And just the game last week against Hearts, when right at the start of the second half, when the through ball comes through for Shankland and their centre forward was on it straight away, Butland should have been out at that ball, Rose it, but he just stayed sort of on his line, generally on his line. The ball run onto it, and then that's when Butland came out and narrowed the angle, and the boy scalped the post. So we got away with that one there. But if you look at the graphic of that goal, Butland would have made that ball. So his decision making at that kind of split time, I think, is suspect. So that's the difference for me with Jack Butland of being a top goalkeeper to be, what he is at the moment. But I will say, I rate Jack Butland, I like him, and I'm glad he's got a number one mate. But he could be better. That's all I'm saying. It makes me wonder what the coaches are doing on a daily basis when they do the analysis of the games. What they're saying to Jack Butland. Sometimes I just think it can be improved no matter what age is. Why they're not improving him? That's my opinion.
Okay, and just in keeping with the theme of the show, what A2F? Where would you rate him this season only? Obviously.
Where to where, mate? Sorry, not to 10.
A2F.
Oh, ATF? Oh, well, I'd just go not to 10, mate. Well, listen, if you're going to go to not to 10, I would have him up there as a 7 anyway, definitely. 7.5. I rate him. 7.5, mate. I rate him, but there is improvement to be made in Jack Butland. I think we can all agree with that. But he's at an age now where I'm not too sure whether he wants to be improved. But yeah, I rate him. I'd give him a 7.5, mate, and I'm glad he's with us. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, and guys, we'll just quickly go for the letters here. So, Scott, what would you place him as?
I give him a B. I think he's the best keeper we've got at the moment. I think he's one of the best in the league as well. Every keeper makes mistakes. Sometimes at a club like Rangers, are highlighted more because teams maybe not attack you as much as in other leagues. And Jack Butland's where he's at because that's where he is. He's always been one of these guys when he was young, he had a lot of potential. He's never fulfilled that potential for me. He's still only 30, but he's still got a good 6-7 years left in him. I feel like other keepers, and I'm happy he's with us as well, but I'll give him a B, and I think he's far better than Liam Kelly.
Okay, and Ross, last but not least, where would you put Butland?
I would say a B minus.
B
being
minus.
pedantic, yeah, B minus.
I was going to get a B because I've now got minuses.
Yeah, I think he's obviously still been somebody that can pull off moments for us, but I think, as you said, this season he's been more suspect at parts of the game that I think this time last year he probably wouldn't have cost us. And like you say, we've not conceded a lot of goals, but what seems to happen is the goals that we do concede now are really costing us in big moments. We even talk about the goal against Kilmarnock, where he's, at kind of 6 and 7s. We know Suter doesn't help there either, but, a commanding goalkeeper just comes out and boots it or collects it, or there needs to be, I think he doesn't have that top level of communication. And I don't know if that's because he doesn't have trust in his defenders or if the defenders don't have trust in them. We've seen that before, even with the later stages of Alan McGregor, where it's just these small mistakes can creep in. And we just don't know kind of if that's, if it's a psychological thing, if he's maybe just now at a stage in his career where he's kind of maybe now feeling the pressure of being a number one again, because he's not been a number one for a while. I think people forget that as well.
He was on United's bench for pretty much the entire season before he came to us, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I think at the start he kind of maybe came in with a bit of a point to prove, and then everybody was singing his praises and we're going, God, what a steal this has been. And I don't know if he's maybe, without being too harsh, I don't know if he's maybe just reverted down to the level that I think he actually is. He can obviously come through with a lot of potential, but I think he's maybe now just taking a step back. And as Ricky says, I don't think at this point you can really go up again.
Aye. Okay. So all agreed, B for Butland. I think the next one might be a wee bit more controversial. without further ado, James Tavernier. Scott, I'll start with you this time, mate. So, James Tavernier, I mean, yeah, right back, we know that. 3 assists this season, started 10, played 11, 908 minutes with 2 yellow cards. Perhaps surprisingly for a lot of people, looking at his radar, it's pretty maxed out for a right back. And that kind of ties with what one of the regular contributors, Doug, always says, where he talks about Tav and his stats. It doesn't really feel like it makes the eye test for. So what's your thoughts on Tav this season?
This season's a season too much for Tav. That's just my opinion. I think he thinks he can still do what he's done previously in the mind, but his body can't. And I think you can see that with his... I know you're saying his stats are good, but it's always been his stats as in creating goals or scoring goals, which are very poor for Tavernier at a point in the season. So I think his best years are behind him, and I think we have to move on. So I would give him a D, because he's not contributing offensively, and that's what he's done. That's what he's done for us almost his career, contribute offensively, but he's not. And defensively, he's always been the same. He's always been an okay defender, nothing more than that. But now he's a few games been getting turned inside out quite a few times. So I think it's time we moved on to a new right back. So I'll give him a D, and that's the best I can give him.
Okay, and Ross, where would you rate James Tavernier?
I've got to agree with Scott. I think it's just been too long here at Rangers for James Tavernier. And you say it's only going to be a 50-minute pod. We could have 3 or 4 50-minute pods talking about James Tavernier. There's no point now in crying over spilt milk. It's just we know he's not going to get any better. We know his legs are done. He is, I think, at this point in time, he's the weak link in the defence. And for the manager who's been under a lot of pressure for his decision making, the fact that he's realised that he needs to be phased out is probably one of the few things that he's actually getting right, and only in my opinion. The last few seasons, obviously the argument for James Tavernier has been his contributions, but you see now if you look at, you can just see there the stats. There's no goals, so if we're not getting penalties, he's not scoring goals anymore. He's not contributing in that way. Like I say, he's a weak link defensively. All you need to do, and Celtic prove it, all they need to do is put someone with a bit of pace and a bit of hard work against them, and they're going to get joy out of him. And it's just, for a guy that has had so many big moments for us, in Europe, how many times did we see him turning up at the back post and slotting away, burying big penalties? We can't take that away from him. It's just at a point now where it's too far gone from him. So it's not to say that he doesn't try. I don't think we're in that stage where he's not trying, but there comes a point where you need to just admit that enough is enough and move on.
Yeah, totally agree with that, mate. Ricky, what's your thoughts on Tavernier? Where would you rate him, mate?
Well, Scott's got it bang on. You can't give him any more than a D. I don't say I'd condone his effort. He just doesn't get the legs anymore. We saw the best of Tav when he had Candias in the right-hand side, and we'd never ever really replaced Candias, because when Tav was bombing forward and if he get caught up the park trying to create things, Candias was always there to sort of cover that hole when Tav left. And it didn't all finish for Tav when Candias sort of disappeared, but Tav over the years since then has regressed because his pace is gone. Tav's never been a great defender. I don't think we could sit and say he's been a solid right back. He's just been a good right back for us on a sort of a positive note, that he always creates and he scores goals. And but now he's lacking. In any manager who wants to set up against us, knowing that Tav's going to be in a team, this is Clement stubbornness, because we know he's going to be in a team. 2 right backs sitting there with Casa, although he's injured now, and Sterling, but he keeps persevering with Tav. Although a couple of occasions, as we all know, he's sort of changed that recently. Whether he'll do that on Sunday, I doubt it, because Tav's had 2 weeks off and he'll probably start. But the Dundee United manager on Sunday will know. Is it Sunday or Saturday? It's Sunday, isn't it? How it's set
No,
up.
I think it's Saturday this week, mate.
Was it Saturday? So they just know that they'll just put somebody with any pace onto Tav, a ball over the top, down that sort of side of Tav's, and the chances are the guy's going to get on it. And that's the problem we've got now. And it just makes the defence look very, very wobbly because there's a weak link in there, as Ross alluded to, with Tav. And he's got to be dropped and brought on in occasions, not our number one right back. That has got to be Sterling going forward. But again, it's the stubbornness of our manager, which we all know he won't change his mind, and it's just so frustrating because every single one of us know that he shouldn't be starting as a right back.
Yeah, and I think I echo what the guys have said. It's a season or two too long for me. I said coming on that a lot of Tav's game was built on athleticism, and age catches up with the best of us. And I think it is just as simple as that. Go on, Ricky.
Yeah, I think, again, a wee bit of controversy. I was, we're always a big, massive fan of Alan McGregor, but we kept Alan McGregor 2 years far too long. Alan McGregor started costing us points, and again, he drew the support down the middle. Alan McGregor's the best we've got, blah, blah, blah. I was in the camp. Alan McGregor was finished. We needed to change him. Tav's in that position right now as well. He needs to be changed because he's costing us games, the same as Alan McGregor did towards the end of his career.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's my opinion anyway.
Absolutely. So next up, hopefully not quite as controversial. Still a few moments, obviously. John Souttar, pretty much the preferred centre back, and seems to have played alongside one of either Balogun or Proper. He's no goals, no assists. Fair enough. Started 10, 900 minutes played, no bookings in the league. Looking at his radar, it's quite good in the air, a lot of touches, which I don't think surprises anyone that's watched Rangers play. Shot attempts, he's had a few, haven't come off, obviously. Defensive actions is pretty low. Ross, I'll come to you on this one. What have you made of Souttar's season so far?
I think we've seen the best and the worst of John Souttar as a player this year, in terms of, he's proven now that he's got consistency in terms of his fitness. We knew that when he arrived injured, and that cost him, a large part of his first season at Rangers. And then there was obviously the belief that he couldn't, or he struggled perhaps to play on the left side of a two, whilst Goldson was the consistent man. We knew that. I don't think we ever seen the best of him. I think that he's now the right-sided guy in a more settled defence. I think we're starting to see the best of him in terms of his positive attributes. Like you say there, you talk about his aerial duels. He's a very, very dominant defender in the air. We know that. He does have that kind of, head your granny to win the ball kind of mentality, which we like, and we do like that in the centre half. He can bring the ball out. He can pass the ball. I still think he is very prone to a bit of a brain fart. And the thing, I would probably be unfair to not bring it up in the same way that I brought it up with Jack Butland, is that these brain farts tend to cost us in big moments. Mm-hmm. And I think it was probably all summed up after he was excellent for Scotland against Portugal. Not for the first time. He does the great game for Scotland, where he cemented himself as probably the first choice centre half there, and quite rightly, considering some of the nonsense that Steve Clarke persisted in sticking with. I think he's earned that. But he played so well against them, and then came back and cost us against Kilmarnock with just a bit of a nonsense. So he does have that moment in him. I think, as we've spoke about before, it's something that I don't think can change. So you either need to persist with it, or I don't know if you can change. I know it's something we've spoke about, a lot in the chat. We like the idea of a back three. Does a back three kind of circumvent those mistakes more? That's a hypothetical scenario. We don't really know until we would see it in action. But whether that happens or not, I'm not sure. John Souttar, but like I say, you can see that he's clearly a very good defender. He's been very good for us in Europe, because sometimes when we're under the cosh, he is a great siege defender. Yeah, like a lot of good Scottish centre halves. And as I've said, he's got a lot of attributes that we like, and I think we've wanted in a centre half for a long time, somebody that's willing to throw himself at the ball. and do the dirty work of the defending. So it's a bit of a hit and miss kind of player. I do like John Souttar. I think John Souttar's more of the level and more of the caliber of a footballer that we need in the defence. The problem is the inconsistency of his partners. Robin Propper has not been convincing in the slightest. Leon Balogun is very good, but Leon Balogun is 36 or 37 years of age, so it's unfair to expect him to play at a level that I think we need a centre-half partnership to be at. So in terms of Souttar as an individual, I think a B is a very good, solid rating for him. And I think he's deserved it because he's improved since he's been here.
Okay. And Ricky, I'll come to you next. Where would you place John Souttar?
I'd give him a B as well. And I think Ross has summed up absolutely perfectly. He's had 3 great games for Scotland now, literally man in the match performances in all 3 of them. So the consistency's there. Yes, there's a mistake in John Souttar, but is that probably because our defence is kind of weak on the right-hand side and they're getting caught out because this ball was going over the top of Tav, or Tav's getting beat with pace and they're always in the back foot? Because when you're up against a team, again, I'll go back to the kind of Hibs game, bottom of the league at the time, and Hibs had 18 shots on our goal, and I believe most of them were all generated down Tav's side. So when you've got a weakling in the defence, it's going to knock the kind of confidence and the kind of sense of where the centre-halves are meant to be playing. They go a little bit higher up at the balls, and it's just everyone's all upset routine-wise if you've not got a strong back four, and I think that's one of the problems we've got at the moment with John Souttar. The good thing about John Souttar is we have got a season, 12 games now, and he's stayed fit. And touch wood, that stays that way, because at least he's now fit. He's finding his level of fitness, and he's getting the consistency which we need at Rangers. And yeah, for me, he's definitely our number 1 centre half, and yeah, definitely a B for me.
B for you too. Okay. Next up then is 36/37-year-old Leon Balogun. Hasn't played as many games. He's started 4, played 8. I think probably all 4 of those other appearances were coming on as a sub 4 proper. As you mentioned, there's been some issues there. 1 yellow card, no reds. Again, looking at his radar, aerial is pretty good. Touches is high, shot attempts is high. Interestingly, he's a lot higher in his defensive actions. What have you made of him? I'll come to you on Balogun first, Ricky.
Well, big Leon Balogun's, nice and steady. You know you're going to get from him. His positional play is fantastic. He's still got a good ton of pace. So with the ball over the top, big Leon will always get there. It's just whether we can keep him consistently in a team at 37 years of age. You cannot allow him to keep playing, Saturday, Thursday, whatever it may be. So he has to be rested. And then there comes the kind of, the changing of that balance that Ross alluded to earlier on. To have a successful team, you've got a strong 2 partnership that 55 season we had that with Golson. So when you're losing your Balogun, or as losing his partner, you're losing that little bit of continuity, a little bit of confidence, getting to know a new player again. And that goes for the whole back four, and even the 2 pivot players in the midfield. So the one thing that Big Leon's letting himself down with is his age, but he'll never let you down in the park. He's a great player, and easily a C for me. If you could have had him at 27 instead of 37, oh God, he'd be a player for us, wouldn't he? But yeah, I mean, I would never slag the boy down. He's just a bit of a diamond player, just at the wrong age, and I would give him a C.
Yeah, that's I'll tell you what, he's a bloody good speaker when he does media as well.
Oh yeah. He's a perfect professional, is Leon Balogun. Perfect.
Yeah. And Scott, what about yourself? Where would you place Leon Balogun?
Probably say a C. Leon's, he never really lets you down. I thought against Hearts, pace-wise, he was struggling against Vargas. I thought he's obviously not going to be as quick as he used to be, but he doesn't let you down. He's a good player to bring in when you're struggling. He'd be a good partner for Souttar if he was younger, but sadly, he just caught with him as well. And we do need another centre back in to play with John Souttar, because John Souttar is the best we have, and Balogun probably the next best, but it's just unfortunate because of his age. in past injuries. He can't play 2-3 games a week, but he doesn't let you down. He's always good to have around the place.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ross, where do you see Balogun on the card?
Only because of his age and he's not played a lot. I've got to make it a hat trick and give him a C. I think that he's come in and he hasn't let us down. He never has. And his 2 spells, he's come in and sometimes had to be a bit of a stopgap. And probably this year he's played more than I think he's had to play, which has been unfair on him because of, as I mentioned before, the kind of inconsistency and the perhaps lack of confidence everybody seems to have now in Robin Proper. So he's had to step up, and like he says, he does have a ton of pace against. There's players he can still get the better of, but I think sometimes now we're at a stage where somebody with that blistering pace could perhaps get the best of him. But like we said with Tavernier, age can come to us all. It happens to everybody, and there's no shame in it. And in terms of as a guy around in terms of a guy around the dressing room, he seems to come across as one of the better ones in a dressing room that doesn't seem to be particularly full of real positive influences at the moment. He seems to come across really well. He gets sent out to do the media stuff even when things aren't great, and he calls it how it is. And I think we need more of them. And I think we've all said, he's one of these guys that, God, I wish we got him even 5-6 years ago as a centre half partner with Goldson instead of, if we'd bought him instead of maybe Katic. Who knows? It could have been something special even earlier than it was. But like I say, I'll go with a C for Leon Balogun.
Okay, fair enough. And next up, I don't think this chap's going to be getting such a good rating because we've all pretty much just said third choice. Robin Proper, so started 7, 547 minutes, quite a low number compared to games started. 3 yellows, says no goals. Technically did have 1, just in the wrong net. Interestingly, looking at his radar, at first glance, you might not think it's too bad, but the one that he's just about maxed out is, again, touches, which, as we've said, I think is more symptomatic of how Rangers play and try and build from the back. Aerial duels isn't terrible, but it is significantly lower than the other 2. Defensive actions is way down as well. Scott, I'll come to you first on Robin Proper. What have you made of him? Because he arrived to, I'm not going to say fanfare, but he was certainly expected just to slot in and steady the ship, wasn't he?
He was, but I think because of his age and always played in the Dutch league, it's difficult to come to a league at that age and try and set one straight away. It can take you time, but I think he's a good footballer. He's good on the ball. He's got a good touch out the stats and saying, we play a lot of stuff at the back. But he can pass a ball. He likes to pass a ball forward. He's got an eye for a pass. And it's the physical side of the game I don't think he likes up here. People run at him. People pass on him. I don't think he's used to that, and I think it surprises him, and that's why he's been cut out quite a bit. In there, he's okay, but he's not what we're looking for. I just think he was a wrong signing. I don't think he's a bad footballer. I just think it doesn't suit Scottish game, and he's not for us. So I'd probably give him a D because he's not done a lot. I think his strength is, if you watch a Dutch football, it's quite slow. You don't get pressed as much, and that's his type of football he likes to play because he's comfortable that way. But when physicality comes into it, he's not the best. So I just think maybe if it came maybe a few years ago, he might have been able to adjust, but just because of what he's been used to and what he does, he's more suited to a type of football. I don't think he's suited to the Scottish League.
Fair enough, mate. And Ross, what's your thoughts on Robin Proper? Where would you rate him?
I'll go with a D as well. I think that when he first came in, the idea of Robin Proper made sense in terms of a replacement for Goldson. It allowed Souttar to move into his preferred position. He was left-footed. He came from a club that had probably just overachieved in terms of FC20. I believe they finished 3rd in the Eredivisie, which is obviously really good to get, ahead of whatever, who I would assume it was either, Feyenoord or PSV or Ajax or whoever had, I think it was Ajax had the bad season last year. So they kind of overachieved. He was their captain and he came with a bit of a reputation as a bit of a goal scoring defender, and we're like, oh, brilliant, happy days, rubbing your hands. And I think that we've not seen any of that side of it, but what we've also seen is his shortcomings being massively exposed. He's not particularly quick, and if you're not quick, then you need to be able to read the game. And I don't think he's particularly good at that. We've seen a couple of his yellow cards have came from him being beat to the ball and then having to basically pull the guy down. Which at the time you look at them and go, "Aye, that's a great foul to give away in the halfway line." But when it happens, it's happened a few times within the first 5 months of the season. Then it's perhaps a little bit of a cause for concern that his ability to read the game is just not at the level we need. So in terms of obviously that, I don't think, and like we say as well, I don't think he's got the physical attributes. And it's not a surprise that when it comes to Europe, when we need to be a little bit more composed, that his positive attributes in terms of passing the ball out and spraying passes, and obviously he's got a high level of touches there. That's not a surprise that that's his positive parts of the game. But in terms of, I'm kind of sick to the back teeth of talking about guys that are good in Europe but are rubbish domestically. I just want a centre half pairing that is good domestically, and then we can deal with Europe at a later point. So I'll go for a D for Robin Propel.
Okay, and just real quick, Ricky, what would you rate him as?
Yeah, a D. I'll agree with the guys. Technically a very good footballer, as proven in the Dutch league. But he comes to Scotland and it's a hustle and bustle. You don't get the time playing for the jersey. It's a heavy jersey, Rangers jersey, and if you don't cut it, the fans will be on you. So maybe he's struggling with a little bit of confidence. I'm not sure. But I've said many times in the chat, we let Ben Davies go to Birmingham, and we spent £1.5 million in Robin Propper to bring him in as Ben Davies' replacement, and he's like his twin. He's the exact
certainly
same
replaced him, didn't he?
We haven't replaced Ben Davies at all, but we're just down at £1.5 million. So for me, it was a very bizarre signing in the first place. And when it comes to recruitment, he was a big negative for me, Robin Propper. Totally negative. It was pointless bringing him in when we had Ben Davies in situ already. Pointless.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, the next couple I want to rattle through quite quickly. I think, well, one will be positive, one there's not much to talk about. So let's start with what I would imagine will be the positive first. Yefte, and Ross, I'll come to you first for him. Brazilian right back, come in, hasn't got any goals or assists in the league, but he has started 8 games, played 9 in total, 734 minutes. Another that's picked up 3 yellows. Interestingly, for someone that's quite, I don't want to say criticised, but everyone sings the virtues of his offence as opposed to his defence. But he does score quite highly in defensive actions for fullbacks. Also good in the air, perhaps not such a surprise, and a lot of the touches of the ball, which again isn't a huge surprise. What have you made of him in his first season?
I've liked him. I think he's had a lot of positive attributes that he's brought to his game. I think he's a defender that clearly likes to take the ball and drive forward. Very similar to when the very few times we get the best out of Rid van Yilmaz, I think, when that happens, is that he's got the ability to keep the ball. He can take a man on, but what I think he does have in spades is I think he's a guy that's got the crossing ability that I don't think has reaped the rewards just yet, because I think we've had issues up front, which I'm sure we'll come to. I think that we're not reaping the benefits of that in the same way that Borna Barisic's crossing ability did. So, but I think Yefte he's playing like a Brazilian defender that we've signed from Cyprus, and I mean that in a good way with the attacking attributes he's got, and like you say, he does have some decent defensive attributes as well. But he also does have he can have moments as well where he's weak defensively, and I know sometimes I don't think the stats always back up the eye test. I think the answer for these things is always somewhere in the middle between the eye test and the stats. I think he was very unfairly dismissed against Dynamo Kiev. I think we'll all agree, and I think that I think he's kind of become almost a little bit of a target unfairly. But he does have I think he can maybe have a little bit of a temper on him sometimes. He maybe get a bit frustrated when things don't go his way. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. But for a guy that we've signed, and all the reports had the same thing, was that he was great going forward. His crossing ability was good. He could hit a set piece, and he was maybe a bit suspect defensively. I'm not surprised in what we've got from him. I think he's came better than what I was expecting from him at the start, and maybe he's had to play more than was expected because of obviously the injuries to Yilmaz, and perhaps not being able to play Sterling at the back. He's had to play more than is expected, but I think he's going to get better, and he's been one of the few positive, real positive signings, and we've got an opportunity to improve parts of his game because he's still only young. He's only 20 years old, a young man who's came from a completely different culture in Brazil. And how many Brazilians do we see come to these shores and struggle? So it's the fact he's came and kind of settled in pretty quickly. Perhaps having Danilo here has helped as well. But I think Yefty's been a decent signing. He's been one of the better ones.
So where would you rate him, mate?
I'll say I want to say an A-. I'll say an A- because he's not at the top of the signings that we've made, but I don't think he's been a positive attribute in the team, and that's what I'll say.
Cool. No worries. Right, let's blast through the next few. So, Ricky, what would you rate Yefty as?
Yeah, I'm 100% with Ross. I think you summed it up really well. It's a 20-year-old kid coming in from a Brazilian coming in from Cyprus. I think he's settled into a kind of transitional team unbelievably well. And for me, him and Barron have been the two major positives in their recruitment this year. They've done fantastically well for two young boys. And I would like to give Jefty an A, but we all know there's still room for improvement. So he more than merits a B. But what I'll tell you, he's a good player. I'm glad we've got him.
So, sorry, did you say a B or an A?
I can't give him an A, mate, because he's playing in a transitional team at the moment. But he's on a good trajectory with us. He's a player, and we're lucky to have him. That's for sure. So I'd give him a B at the moment. He's doing really well.
Perfect. And Scott, what about yourself, mate?
He's still very raw, as you can see, but he's not long-term professional. I think it was only a year or 2 years ago he turned professional. You can see he's raw. He's got tons of potential. He's done good things. He made a lot of mistakes as well. I was wondering if some of the comments said he's very one-footed, but a lot of footballers are nowadays. But I think he will improve, so I'm going to give him a C.
C. Okie doke. It's the first one you guys have disagreed on, eh? Right, next one, and I really don't want to spend much time on this because he ain't spent much time on the pitch. Ridvan Yilmaz started 2, played 2, 180 minutes, 1 yellow card. Shot attempts is good, chances created is good. He certainly seems actually going by the radar for his limited games to provide more of an attacking output than Yefty. Touches again is high. Defensive, both very, very poor, to be honest. Ross, I'll come to you first on Yilmaz. Just quick couple of sentences, and where would you rank him?
I mean, it's hard to go higher than an F, isn't it? To be brutally honest with you, with Ridvan Yilmaz, as somebody that we signed, I was massively all for, and I thought this is the kind of different style of left back that we need to replace Barisic, and we've just had not remotely enough for the money that we've paid out of him, to be honest. And I know after coming off the Jefty one being probably more the positive of the three of us, I'm going to come out as a pretty negative one in terms of Yilmaz because I was so high on him, and he's just been such a disappointment of a signing. Whether it's he just doesn't like being here, maybe he's just unsettled away from Turkey, which you can understand. Something else. He's obviously had issues with injuries. It's just not worked out for him, to be honest with you. And I find it really hard to give him anything, to be honest with you, because he's not done enough. It's like if we're doing report cards, if you don't turn up to a class, you don't get a grade. And he's not turned up to class, so he's barely turned up to class. So why should he get a grade?
Yeah, fair play. Ricky, where would you rate Yilmaz?
Well, I'm grading him on what I've seen of him on the pitch, and I'd give him a D. I mean, he's not a bad player. He's just made of glass. Again, the recruitment, we brought him in for a substantial amount of money, and the guy's about 4'2". I mean, he's a height of shut button. that alone in Scotland is bringing on your problem straight away. You know, the big crosses coming in, the big centre halves up there for corners, you know, the big tall hustly bustle sort of centre forwards that are up in Scotland. They just power, like I said, Yilmaz out the game. But when he's playing and, you know, when he's on song, Yilmaz is a good player, but I just think the balance for him being in Scotland isn't right. And with his value being, or his stock value still being quite good, if we were ever going to get a chance to sell him as a fit player, I'd get rid of him and bring somebody in certainly taller for that left back position. But yeah, I wouldn't go as low as an F, you know, because when he's playing, based on what I've seen him playing, he's a decent enough player. I'd give him a D.
Okay. And Scott, where would you rate him?
I'm just laughing at Ricky there saying he's small. A lot of good left backs and right backs have been small throughout the years, but I'm not. I'm going to give Yilmaz a D, and I'll also sell him in January.
Yeah. I think I actually really like Yilmaz when he's had a run of games. The problem is that happens about twice a season for me. You know, but once he's settled and had that kind of 4 or 5 games to bed himself in, he looks like he could be a player. And every time you get excited by him, he breaks again. It's so frustrating. So yeah, I would absolutely be interested in selling him if we can, obviously. Okay, moving on to the midfield. Connor Barron. I think this one probably be a bit more positive. Obviously signed from Aberdeen under freedom of contract. There is a development fee still to be thrashed out. No goals and assists, but he started 10, played 11, 884 minutes. No bookings in the league. Perhaps not unsurprisingly, his highest 2 attributes are defensive actions and touches. Not really a shock given the way he drops into the defence and tries to link back to front. Not so good in the air, not really created much chances, although I would caveat with the fact that he's mostly played as a defensive mid-6. Ricky, I'll come to you first on Connor Barron. Where do you rate him? What have you made of his start to life at Rangers?
Well, he's had a great start, mate. He's pushed his way into that Scotland squad, albeit he's not getting any starting 11 in the Scotland team, but he's in the squad now. I think he's had a great start to his career. Yes, he's had moments. He never had a great game up at Aberdeen, but he's a young boy. He's going back up there. He's getting booed every single time he gets a touch. That's obviously going to affect him mentally. So it's probably understandable he didn't have a great game up there. But on the whole, Connor Barron has settled into our team remarkably well for a young boy at hostile Ibrox in a transitional season. And for me, going forward, if he continues to play the way he is playing, and improves the way I think he will do, then he's a future Rangers captain for me. I'd give him a B right now. Good player.
Okay, cool. And Scott, where would you rate Connor Barron?
I would agree with Rick. I'll give him a B. I think he's been really good since he's come into the team. I think he's probably thought to himself he's been given more games than he probably thought he would have by now. I think he's been unfair at times. He's kind of into the default 6 position, which probably isn't his position anyway, but he has to be better on the ball for me. Gives it away at times, and he has to go and win it back. And he doesn't create enough, and he has to get more shots on goal when he's moving forward. But I like the way he plays. He's full of energy. He covers the part well. He covers players well. And like I said, he's come in and hit the ground running. But I think there's a lot of improvement to be happening. And I think he will get better, so I'll give him a B.
Okay, and Ross, just lastly for yourself, where would you rate Barron?
I mean, I think I've kind of dug myself into a hole here by giving Jeffy an A- and assuming that Barron's not been better than Jeffy. So I mean, I can't be told that I'm being too negative, which I think sometimes I tend to come across as quite negative, giving players an A after this season. I'll say Barron's an A because I think Barron and another player that we might come on to have probably been the 2 standout signings so far this season.
Okay.
When he came in, I think we're now starting to see the best of him with a slight change in the midfield. I'm starting to push forward a wee bit, so I think we'll see the best of him.
Okay. So just before we carry on, if you have liked what you've seen so far, please do like the video. As Scotty said in the comments, make sure to leave a comment after the video is finished, and it helps churn the video out on the algorithm. Guys, I've been a bit of a shite host. Time's getting away from us. So these next few, right, let's just literally rate them, because I think there's one at the end, at the top end of the pitch, we're all going to want to say a few words on. All right. So, Nicholas Raskin, obviously injured at the start of the season. He has now started 5 games, played in 8 total, 459 minutes. Seems to like a yellow card, 4 of them so far. Looking at his radar, obviously defensive actions way up and aerial duels way up, as are touches. Bit of a terrier in the middle. Ricky, I'll come to you first. Where would you grade him?
Based on his last 5 games, last 5-6 games, mate, him and Barron are starting to show a very, very good partnership. The only thing it lacks is height, but I'm going to give him a positive B. I think he's been great the past 5 games.
Cool. And Scott, where would you rate him?
I'll give him a C, just because I think he needs to stay in the team a lot longer. I think the last 5 games, like you said, he's been superb. That's what you want to see for asking, but I just want him to stay for injury. That's been his major downfall. He has a run of games and he gets injured and he's missed them for a long period and he struggles to get back in. So if he can stay in the team for a long period of time, get a run of games, then the world is oyster, because he's a really good player, but I give him a C.
Okay, and Ross. Nico
I'll
Raskin.
go with a C. I think if we do this again after the next round of games and he keeps playing the way he's playing, that will go up, and I think we'll all agree with that he'll go up if he keeps playing the way he's been playing. Consistency, absolutely. That's what we need.
Yeah, that's it. A run of consistent performances, absolutely. Okay, Mohamed Diomande. Again, let's just blast through the ratings. I know this one potentially is a bit controversial, seems to split folk down the middle. He has started 8 games, played 9 matches total, 663 minutes, 3 yellow cards. Surprisingly, shot attempts is quite up there. It's a bit strange because I hardly remember the guy having a shot until the last few weeks, but there we are. Aerial duels 1, pretty poor. Quite a tall guy, so it's a bit of a surprise. Not such a defensive focus. He does seem to be more forward thinking of the 3 midfielders. Ricky, I'll start with you again. What would you rate Mo Diomande so far?
Well, I've gave Raskin a B, so he's going to have a D. Potentially a very good player, not consistent enough, and I don't think the system that we play allows to get the best out of Diomande with the way Clement sets up. So for me, a C.
A C. Okay. Scott, where have you got him, mate?
I agree with Ricky, I'll give him a C, but I think we need to see a lot more from him. But I do understand what Ricky was saying about the system. I don't think it suits him either, but we still need to see more form. To me, he has to offer more in game, something the game goes by.
Okay, and Ross, what about yourself, mate? I'll give him a C as well. I was thinking towards a D, but I just for the ability he's got, or I think we should be getting a hell of a lot more out of him. The money we've spent on a midfielder like that, he should be head and shoulders the best player on our team, and he's not remotely close to it.
I actually don't think some of Clement's comments have necessarily helped there when he's been constantly bigging him up as, you know, this guy's going to be the next guy to move on for big money. I think maybe someone just needs to sit Diomande down and say exactly what you've just said, Ross. You know, look, we have got hopes for you, but right now you're not doing it. But yeah, one to watch. Journey, fairly poor start. Well, sorry, that's a lie. So good first 2 games. Went for a bit of lull in form. Pretty quickly seemed to become a bit of a boo boy for the fans. Answered his critics quite well, I would suggest. Played himself back into form. He now has a total of 4 goals, 1 assist. Started 8 games, played in 9, 636 minutes in total. Shot attempts, goals, touches, and chances created all well up there. Ricky, Václav Černý, where would you rate him?
I'm going to give him a C because he started very poorly and he's now come onto a game, and I'm really pleased about that. But it's a team game. He's very predictable. And when Tav does get caught up the park, when he's trying to be positive things, Tierney is nowhere near covering Tav when Tav's out of position. And then all of a sudden, we've got problems because that whole gaping hole on the right-hand side. I go back to Candias. He worked hard to cover Tav. Tierney doesn't. So, yes, I'm pleased with these last sort of 4 or 5 games, but I can't give him a B. No, not yet. So, it'll be a C for me.
Okay. And Scott, what about yourself, mate?
I'll give him a C as well. I think after the set 2 with the fans when he was playing quite poor, I think after that he's come back really well. I don't think he's a defensive player. I don't think we're going to get him coming back and covering. I don't think that's his game. I don't think he likes that side of the game. So that's why I've gave him a C. But going forward, he's decent. But you need to see more defensive, but I don't know if he offers that.
Okay. And Ross, where would you rate Václav Černý?
I'll give him a C as well. I think his first half of his Rangers career so far was a D or an E, and the second bit's been a B. So I think meet in the middle somewhere. The one thing I've liked about him is he's at least owned up and shown a bit of a mentality to say, I made a mistake and I've not been good enough and I'm sorry. And since then, he's looked a far, far better footballer. So I'll go for a C for his overall season so far.
Yeah, I would echo that, mate. It's something for me that's not seen often enough in a lot of footballers. You know, there's always a bit of the ego, but he seemed really humble. And as we said, he kind of worked his own way back in by performing on the pitch. Okay, covered both wings, although primarily on the right. So I've put him in here. Ross McCausland, obviously one of our own through the academy, into the first team. Only 1 assist, started 3, played 8, 241 minutes. Chance created is quite high. Outside of that, shot attempts, averaging, same with touches, probably about what you would expect for the limited minutes that he's had. Ricky, I'll come to you first. Where would you rate Ross McCausland?
Again, I'd probably give the young lad a C. I love his energy. I think he's more, at this moment in time, an impact player. I think when he starts for us, he doesn't have a decent game. But when you bring him on, he never lets you down. And it's kind of weird, that, isn't it? Some players are like that, they're fantastic super subs. And I'd like to see him perform like that from the very beginning, which I don't think he can at the moment. So I'd give him a C.
Okay. And Scott, what about yourself, mate?
I'm going to give him a D. I just think he's a squad player at best, but if we want to move forward as a club, and I like Ross McCausland, but we need better. We need better players, and I don't think he has that to be a first teamer, so that's why I'm giving that a D.
Okay. And Ross, yourself, where would you rate him?
I've got to go for a D as well. I don't think that he's at the, like I say, he's not at the level that we need in terms of a first team right or left sided winger. He's just not good enough, and I know he's got so many other things in his personality and his person that we love as Rangers supporters. You know, there's nothing we love more than a boy coming through that's one of our own, and we love that. But that can't be overlooked ahead of some of his footballing ability. And I don't think, as Ricky says, when it comes to starting games, he just doesn't have it, I don't think.
We've lost you there, Ross.
Oh, sorry, guys. You hear me?
Yep, can hear you now, mate.
My apologies. I've no idea what happened there.
Technical issues.
Sorry, I'm just saying that he's just not at the level we need. As much as we love somebody like that, he's just not at the level. So I'll say a D.
Yeah, fair enough. And Tom Lawrence, another I think most folk wanted shot of in the summer. Did come into a run of form pre-injury. Arguably bailed us out of a few games. As we can see here, is 3 goals and 2 assists. Started 7, played 8. Shots and goals, both well up there. Touches, yeah, again, he's getting involved quite a lot. Defensive side, a bit lower as you would expect. Ricky, what's your thoughts on Tom Lawrence so far?
It's a strange one, that one, Dave, because when he's on song, isn't he? He does sort of fulfill that number 10 role, keeping things sort of linked as best he can. But for me, he's a bit of a, I don't know, unless he's a wimp, you know, he's another one that's just injury prone. The days of somebody getting a knock and getting no magic spray on and getting up and running it off seem to have gone, you know. And Tom Lawrence, for me, is that type of player. He gets a knock, and you know for a fact he's going to go off the park. So there's just not consistency with Tom Lawrence, and he's another one that if I know he's at contract at the end of the season, but if we can move him on in January, I would do, because I don't think we're going to get any consistency as far as games are concerned out of Tom Lawrence. You'll get 4 or 5 maybe injured again. So I'm going to give him a C.
Okay. Let me get that. And what about yourself, Scott? What would you rate Tom Lawrence?
I just concur with Ricky. I think he's a moments player. I want to give him a C. I think he's got moments in him. He does some good stuff, but he's just catching up with him. His body's letting him down at times. He's in and out of team with injury, and I think if we don't get him in January, I think in the season he'll walk away, because we need better again.
Some scenes when Clement signs him up for another 2 year. Ross, what about yourself for Tom Lawrence? What have you made of his season so far?
I'll say a C only because he's had a few important goal contributions. You know, the goal at Tannadice to get us the win, but he's a guy you don't get more than 10 or 15 minutes of decent football out of him in a game, and I just don't think that's remotely nearly enough for him. Clement seems to like him, and I think that if that in the wonderful scenario that if he took the Belgian job, I think he'd be trying to figure out if Tom Lawrence has got a Belgian granny. I really do. But nah, I see we just don't get enough of him.
Okay, I think that's fair, to be honest. Next up is Nadim Bayrami. Just the 1 goal in the league. Started 5, played 7 total. 1 yellow card. A lot of touches. Quite decent chance creation. Shot attempts is there, middling. Rest of the game, not so much. Ricky, what have you made of Bayrami since he arrived at the club?
He's a class act. There's no doubt about it. Where his best position is, we just really don't know, because when he plays for his national team, he plays down the left-hand side where he's playing for Rangers. We just all assume that when we do get Cortez back, he's going to end up taking that central number 10 role. We can't wait to see that happening, to be honest with you. But it's just positive for me, and he's a B.
Okay. And what about yourself, Scott?
A C for me. I think you can see he's a good footballer. He's got a good touch around with the belt. He runs well with the ball. He always scored against Aberdeen's class, but I think he has to get used to the game up here. I think his role, I don't know if he's a right-sided player or a number 10. And I just feel sometimes when the other team attack on us, he doesn't come back, just like Germany. Doesn't really come back in defence. So I think we need to see more from him, but you can see the ability is there, so I'll give him a C.
Yeah, and I think that position one's key for me is, we all thought he was signed as a 10, and I think we've seen him once in the 10 role since. Ross, same question to yourself. Where would you rate Bayrami?
I think Bayrami's been the best signing of the summer, to be honest with you. I think he looks like a guy that's got so many attributes that we love and we've needed in a footballer. I know we've said he's been playing out of position, but he's looked just as comfortable playing off the left. Mm-hmm. You know, he's got quick feet. He's an intelligent footballer. He can pass. He's got a wee bit. He's got dig, and he's got hard work about him as well. I don't think he works harder than Czerny. I think he will get back. He doesn't get back as much as I think we want wingers to do. Maybe that's just because he's not a natural left-sided winger. Which is okay. That's fine. But I think he's a guy that we've needed for a long time. I think he does have much better ability than the players that we've lost. I think he's the guy that we wanted Lammers to be in terms of that kind of creative 10, even though Lammers wasn't a 10, but Michael Beale insisted on playing him as a 10. But Bayrami's the guy, and I think he's been the signing of the summer, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I do quite like what I've seen of him so far, if I'm being honest. It's one of these, I don't think he's looked out of place on the left. I'm just dying to see what he can do as a 10, because that's supposed to be his natural position. If he's playing as he is a lot of the time on the left, hopefully he can provide even more through the middle, but maybe one day we'll find out. Okay. I'm sure we've all been looking forward to this one. Cyril Dessers, the Nigerian nightmare, the enigma, whatever you want to call him. So 4 goals in the league, 1 assist. He has started 9, played 11, which is a total of 772 minutes. 1 yellow card. Not bad for someone that's always moaning at the refs. Chances created, way up there. Shot attempts, way up there. Even goals, he's not actually doing bad in. I'll come to you first, Ricky. Cyril Dessers, go.
Mitch is going to hate me here. So.
He's already in the comments, mate. And in less than a 10, you're in trouble, apparently.
Listen, his effort's there. There's no doubt about that. But he's just not a footballer. He just doesn't make the right runs. His first touch is shocking. Again, whether it's his system of play, he's also isolated. He just doesn't link anything. And yet he comes up with moments of magic, which, you know, we need a lot more than moments for our number one striker. We're scoring 1-0 victories, I think about 7 or 8 this season. If we buried the amount of chances he has been given, these games will be a lot more comfortable, and you need a striker who's going to score the goals. I'm going to give him a D, and that's been positive because he's a dreadful footballer.
She'll be lobbying to get you kicked out of the group chat after that, Ricky. Oof.
He's dreadful. He's dreadful.
Okay, and Scott, what about yourself, mate?
I want to give him a C just because he has scored a few important goals, but I don't think he's a start. I don't think he's a starting nine for us. To me, he hides at times when the ball's on one side of the park, he goes and hides behind the centre back. He doesn't make the runs. He can't really hold the ball up. He passes go astray, but then the next minute he can beat 2 players and cut out by the goalie. That's the type of player he gets moments from him, but I think it's been unfair at times where he's been our only number 9, so we have to rely on him. I don't know if he's ever had that in his career. I don't really know a lot about him until I came to this, to be honest with you. But I don't think we can rely on somebody like that if we want to go forward. I think the squad played at best, but if we could sell him, I would do that as well. So just because the goals he had scores, I know he gets a lot of dig, and I've given it myself, but he has chipped in with the goals at times, so I'm going to give him a C.
Yeah, and I think, in fairness, I mean, I give it the boy tight. He frustrates me something rotten, but I do accept the point that he has, for large parts, been the only fit up to speed striker that we've had, and you know that probably has had an impact. I still don't think he's good enough, just to be clear. Not as a starting number 9, but potentially, if you had a bit of competition in there, maybe if Danilo was starting, he was the backup, he would be seen in a very different light. So I accept that. Still bugs the hell out of me for Ross. I'll come to you last, mate. You're usually my champion in the chat when I'm on a rant about Dessers. What do you think? Where would you rate him?
The positives, he's contributed. He's scored some excellent goals. The one against Olympiacos is right out the top drawer. And I've said before, and I remember I was in our pod with Mitch, and I did say he has played in games where he should not have been playing, which has been unfair to him. And you have to give him credit for, at times, trying. At times, the negatives far outweigh that. We do not get enough out of him. We do not remotely get enough out of him in terms of his ability to hold the ball up. And his finishing is the most erratic I think we've ever seen from a number 9, because how many number 9s have we had that were superb centre forwards and could score goals, or were duds and just miss sitters, you know, still Sibo thing. But Dessers, just, you don't know what you're going to get at times. And even in the same game, you have moments where he scores superb goals, and then the other 89.5 minutes, he's just hopeless, throwing himself to the ground. So I'll say a C.
A C.
But which I think's being kind, but only because I feel Mitch, and I know Mitch is like, I'm watching you, so I'll give a C, Mitch, right? C minus.
Well, I don't know what graphic Mitch is talking about. That must be the Scuddy pictures that Dessers have got of Clement, maybe? Maybe, I don't know. I'll ask him later. All right, guys, thanks for that. It's been pretty good, actually. I'll push the results out on the social media channels just so that everyone can kind of see what we've come to. But just as a summary, Ross, surprisingly perhaps, has been a bit positive and given 2 A's to Jefte and Baron. Nobody else has given an A, so Scott and Ricky both the negative people tonight. The vast majority have been either B's or C's, most C's. And then in the D's, we've had Tav, Proper, Yilmaz, apart from Ross, who went F for that one, McCausland, and Ricky gave Dessers a D as well. So, as I say, check out the socials. The full results will be on there. That's it from us tonight, but thanks very much for coming on, everyone. Ricky, appreciate it as always, pal.
Thanks, buddy. That went another 10 minutes, eh? We've got my CD.
I know. Scotty will be hunting me. It's fine.
Thanks, lads. Yeah, enjoyed that. Thank you.
Cheers. And Scott, thank you very much for coming on. Pleasure as always to have you, mate.
No problem. I always enjoy coming on here, listening to you guys speak when I'm not on here, but I enjoy coming on and taking part as well. So thanks for inviting again, guys.
That's it. And Ross, you know, almost as bipolar as Dessers, the only one to give an A, the only one to give an F. But again, thank you very much, mate. I think it's been actually a really interesting chat through these guys.
Bad days when I'm the positive one, innit?
I know,
Bad
right?
days.
I know.
I had to balance it out. That's why I only get the F, because I was feeling too positive with myself. I'm like, no, right, Ross, you need to rein it in a bit here. Pleasure.
Thanks. Just before we go, folks, I've just noticed a comment in the chat. No Clement report card. As Scotty said, actually, we've got a whole pod tomorrow to do a report card on Clement, how he's performed, where he needs to improve. I'm sure there'll be plenty of thoughts on that. But that's it for tonight. Thank you again for listening, folks. And if you have enjoyed what you've heard, as always, please do like the video and like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Every night's a Rangers Journal night.